Hi, get ready with me really quickly for a virtual interview that I have in a half hour. So, a virtual interview is not uncommon, especially in these post-COVID days. They can be a little bit weird and uncomfortable because you're not making that same in-person human connection, which is something that I personally do really well with. But they are definitely a staple in the job hunt these days. So I think it's really important to be prepared for them. Now, because they are on the computer, I'm not going to put on a ton of makeup. I just want to look like I tried, a little bit elevated, even though I am not seeing them in person. I think what's really important to keep in mind is that just because it's virtual or online or over the phone doesn't make it any less of a real interview. And so you want to treat it the same way you would an in-person one, with the same amount of respectability and preparation that you would for any in-person interview. Now, I'm going to do more on general interview prep, but my number one thing is knowing who you're talking to. So I'm actually speaking to a hiring firm that this employer has contracted to interview for them. And I actually did a preliminary call with the recruiter yesterday. So I already have a pretty good idea of the job and the place that the job is for. And so I feel pretty good on that end. But if you didn't have the luxury of having already talked to a recruiter or something to that effect, you want to make sure that you've looked up both the company, the person that you're going to be interviewing with, and the person or team that you'd be working for. Now, one of the added difficulties of an in-person interview is that it's incumbent of you to make sure that you have a good background and setup. I have my home office, which I know everyone doesn't have the luxury of having, but regardless of the space that you have, creating a professional looking background is really important. I have a lot of my kind of political paraphernalia from the different jobs that I've worked behind me, but something as simple as a nice bookshelf, or when in doubt, just a plain wall. It's also really important to make sure you know what platform you're going to be doing the interview on. For example, today's interview for me is on Microsoft Teams, and that is just not an application that I already had on my computer. So I made sure to go in and download it this morning and make sure that it works, because nothing is worse than having a virtual interview and your technology doesn't work. It's like showing up late to an in-person interview. So do what you can to avoid that. And on the topic of technology, doing a video and sound check before you get on is really important. So once I'm done getting ready, I'm gonna go make sure my setup is all good to go, my microphone works, the speaker output is correct, all of that fun stuff. Just doing everything you can to look as professional as possible, even if you're doing this interview from like your parents' house or your childhood bedroom. Then there's the question of like, what do you wear for a virtual interview? I always say business on the top, party on the bottom. I don't literally mean that, but what I do mean is that just make sure you have on a blazer, a nice sweater, kind of whatever you would be expected to wear to this job in person. I like to elevate it sort of one step up from that. I know some people for virtual interviews like to do the full suit, full outfit. I am kind of at a place in my career where I'm a firm believer that if you're going to make me like stand up and show you my bottoms on a virtual interview that you know full well I'm taking from my house, and you're going to judge me on what bottoms I have on, it's probably not really a place I want to work in general. Now, that being said, do have something normal on the bottom, just in case you are in a situation where this future employer might ask something like that. So like for me, I am going to wear like a top with a blazer jacket over it so that I look really nice, professional up top. But then honestly, I'm just going to keep my black sweatpants on the bottom. They are nice sweatpants. They're not ratty or dirty or anything. So when I do say that it shouldn't matter what's on the bottom, don't wear your underwear. For my ladies, you know, your hair and makeup I think is always important. You should look like yourself, so whatever that usually means for you. I think as you've noticed, I'm somebody who tends to wear a good amount of makeup, and so I like to look as much myself as possible. So I will do my makeup for a virtual interview. My hair is a little dirty today, if we're being honest, so I'm probably gonna do like a nice old-fashioned hair clip in the back. But really, as long as your hair is looking good, put together, same with your makeup. And honestly, for my friends with long hair, just making sure that it's tame and well kept, and you don't look like you just rolled out of bed. Especially if this is your first interview with this company, this is your first real impression, meaning this is the first time they may be laying eyes on you. So you just want to make sure that you're presenting the best version of yourself possible, the same way that you would with an in-person interview. And you should still be prepping the same way. Make sure that you have questions ready to go. I always like to have a notebook next to me in case there's anything I want to write down that's either important to know about the job or something I want to ask a question about later. I also like to and think it's important to keep some water next to you. Similar to an in-person interview, you just never know when something's going to get caught in your throat, or you might stumble over your words if you're choking a bit. So I like to keep some water handy. It's also something you can kind of do with your hands while you're listening to them, or just, you know, looking for something to do and keep busy while you are virtually interviewing. So yeah, a virtual interview should be treated just like an in-person interview. It's honestly just more convenient for you and the recruiter, especially for these first round interviews when you don't know if either of you want to put that much time into getting to know each other. Let me know if any of that didn't make sense, if you have more questions or things to clarify about virtual interviews. But otherwise, be professional, be prepared, be on time, and wish me luck.